We all know why you're really here, Desiree. Coach Phillips' voice cuts through the natatorium, deliberately loud enough for everyone to hear. Diversity scholarships might get you through the door, but they don't make you a swimmer. The words slam into Desiree Taylor like a physical blow. She stands dripping at the edge of the Olympic-sized pool, the chlorine scent mixing with the metallic taste of humiliation rising in her throat. 16 white faces stare from the water, some shocked, most smirking. No one speaks up. But my times were better than half the... Desiree starts, her voice betraying her with a slight tremble. Times? Coach Phillips laughs, the sound echoing off the water. You think this is just about hitting a clock? He gestures dismissively at the electronic scoreboard where just yesterday, Desiree's name had appeared in the top 3. This is about technique, precision, understanding the culture of the sport. The last phrase hangs in the air, its meaning unmistakable. Heather Griffin, team captain with her perfect blonde ponytail, doesn't even try to hide her satisfied smile. Blake Peterson, whose father chairs the school board, actually whispers, finally, loud enough for Desiree to hear. The reality is, Coach continues, checking his expensive Rolex, a gift everyone knows came after the Griffins' substantial pool renovation donation last season. Some people just don't fit our program, no matter how hard they try. A single droplet of pool water trails down Desiree's face, indistinguishable from what might be a tear. The fluorescent lights seem to intensify, spotlighting her as the only dark face in the blindingly white space. You can leave your team suit before you go, Coach adds, already turning away. We wouldn't want to waste resources. Desiree stands frozen, feeling 16 pairs of eyes burning into her skin. Someone snickers. Another whispers something that sounds like, "Quota kid." The words swirl around her like the chemically treated water, toxic and suffocating. With every ounce of dignity she possesses, Desiree forces her chin up. Her spine straightens as she turns and walks, never runs, toward the locker room, each footstep leaving wet prints on the tiles like evidence of a crime. Only behind the sanctuary of the bathroom stall does she allow her hands to shake as she texts her grandfather. It happened. Worse than we thought. She stares at her reflection, at the girl who was fast enough to qualify but somehow not right enough to stay. This isn't about swimming anymore. This was never just about swimming, and they're about to learn exactly what they've done. The city bus squeaks to a halt at the corner of Maple and 43rd, its brakes protesting like everything else in this part of town. Desiree steps down onto cracked concrete, a world away from Westlake Academy's manicured grounds. The contrast never fails to hit her. 20 minutes by bus separates gleaming luxury cars from rusted chain-link fences, verdant lawns from concrete patches where weeds fight to breathe. She walks 3 blocks to the Parkview Apartments, a name that mocks the total absence of any park or view. The elevator's out, again, so she climbs 5 flights, her swim bag heavy on her shoulder. Not that she'll need it anymore. That you, Butterfly? Her grandfather's voice greets her before she's fully through the door. Elton Taylor sits at their small kitchen table, dinner already waiting. At 68, he moves slower these days, but his eyes miss nothing. Hey, Pops. She drops her bag, forces a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. You're home early. His voice is steady, but the lines around his mouth deepen. He already knows. Desiree takes a seat, pokes at the food he's prepared. Coach Phillips cut me today. Said my technique wasn't precise enough. Elton nods slowly, his face a careful mask. But Desiree sees it. The quick flash of pain, then resignation, then something harder settling in his eyes. She's seen that look before, in old photographs from 1972, when he stood beside an empty Olympic pool in Munich. Qualification times in hand, but no chance to compete. Did you tell him about your morning times? He asks, finally. Desiree stares at her plate. No. Why not? The question hangs between them, heavier than it should be, Desiree pushes rice around with her fork, listening to the rhythmic ticking of her grandfather's old kitchen timer. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. The same rhythm he'd count when teaching her strokes as a child. I didn't want to stand out more than I already do, she finally admits, the words painful to voice. I'm already the only black girl on the team, the only scholarship kid, the only one who takes the bus instead of driving Daddy's BMW. Her voice catches. If they knew how fast I really am. Elton rises slowly, disappears into his bedroom, returns with a worn leather notebook. He places it on the table between them. The cover reads simply, The Perfect Stroke. When they wouldn't let me swim in 72, I decided to understand water better than anyone else, he says quietly. Before there were computers analyzing technique, before sports medicine caught up, I was documenting every angle, every resistance point, every way the human body could move through water. He opens the book, revealing pages of meticulous diagrams, calculations, notes in faded ink. Nobody wanted to hear from a black janitor who claimed to understand fluid dynamics better than coaches, so I taught you instead. Desiree remembers those early mornings at the community pool, age 7, her grandfather's patient voice counting strokes while other kids slept. How the water felt different when she followed his instructions, like it parted for her, welcomed her. From his wrist, Elton removes his everyday watch, an ordinary-looking digital timepiece that Desiree knows is anything but ordinary. Professional grade, waterproof to extreme depths, capable of recording split-second intervals with precision most Olympic timers would envy. You've been holding back, he says, not a question. Desiree nods. At team practices, I go full speed only during my 5 a.m. sessions at the community pool when nobody's watching. Why? She looks away. You know why, Pops. The last time a black girl outswam everyone at Westlake, that was 20 years ago, he interrupts, though they both know nothing's really changed. The phone rings, breaking the moment. Desiree answers, her face darkening as she listens. She hangs up, hands trembling slightly. That was Ms. Abernathy, the guidance counselor. My academic scholarship requires an extracurricular activity. I have 3 weeks to find a replacement for swim team, or they'll review my status. Elton's jaw tightens as he glances at the stack of medical bills partially hidden under a cookbook. Bills for medication he pretends isn't as expensive as they both know it is. 3 weeks, he repeats, his voice low. His fingers tap the edge of the notebook. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. The rhythm of perfection. Westlake Academy's hallways buzz with the particular energy of privilege, a hum that dims noticeably when Desiree passes. Conversations halt mid-sentence. Glances slide away. The swim team travels in packs, Heather and Blake at the center, their laughter a little too loud whenever Desiree appears. Did you hear? A whisper not meant to be quiet. Phillips finally had the guts to do it. My dad says those scholarship spots should go to people who actually fit in. The words follow her like ripples, spreading outward, impossible to catch or confront. The sound burns in her ears as she opens her locker, finding it plastered with swim team photos, with her face carefully cut out of each one. Chemistry passes in a blur. Then math. Then physics, where Dr. Winters, a sharp-eyed woman with graying braids, calls on Blake after he snickers at something on his phone. Mr. Peterson, since you find fluid dynamics so amusing, perhaps you'd like to solve this equation on the board. Blake falters, glancing at Desiree with unexpected venom, as if his embarrassment is somehow her fault. Dr. Winters follows his gaze, her expression softening slightly when she looks at Desiree. After class, Dr. Winters calls her aside. I'm assigning a special project on applied physics in competitive swimming. I thought you might be interested. I'm not on the team anymore, Desiree says flatly. I know. Dr. Winters' eyes are knowing. That's why I'm offering the independent study. Later, in the library, heat crawls up Desiree's neck as she scrolls through her phone. Someone has added her to a private Instagram group titled Westlake Real Swim Team. The latest post shows her face photoshopped onto a drowning cartoon character, captioned, "When you realize chlorine doesn't wash off everything." 26 likes, including Coach Phillips. That's messed up. Desiree startles, quickly hiding her phone. A girl with a camera around her neck slides into the seat across from her. Taylor Kim, editor of the school newspaper. They've never spoken before. "Sorry," Taylor says, not sounding particularly sorry. "I was looking over your shoulder. Photography habit. Always framing shots." "It's fine," Desiree mumbles, though it's not. "It's not," Taylor counters, as if reading her mind. "And neither is what Phillips did. You qualified fair and square." Desiree looks up, surprised. "How do you—" "I cover sports for the paper. I record all the trials." Taylor leans forward, "Including the part where your butterfly time was actually better than Heather's before Phillips adjusted the official record." Something cold settles in Desiree's stomach. "He changed my times?" Taylor nods. "After Griffin Sr. made another donation to the athletics department, Phillips is desperate for money these days. Gambling debts, from what I hear." The information lands like a stone, creating ripples of its own, ripples with potential. "There's something else," Taylor continues. "The Riverdale Invitational next month. It's open to non-team members if they qualify at the pre-trials. And," she adds, lowering her voice, "it offers a $5,000 scholarship to the winner." $5,000. Enough to cover Pops's medication for months. Enough to ensure Desiree's academic scholarship doesn't become another thing they can take from her. Her meeting with Ms. Abernathy later that afternoon only underscores the stakes. "I'm concerned, Desiree," the counselor says, peering over wire-rimmed glasses. "Your scholarship review is coming up, and without extracurriculars—" She lets the sentence hang. That evening, Desiree returns home to find her grandfather asleep in his chair, an empty pill bottle on the side table. He looks older when he sleeps, the lines in his face deeper. On the counter beside him sits a notice. Insurance has denied coverage for his next prescription refill. She picks up his weathered notebook, fingers tracing the title, "The Perfect Stroke." Not just a technique now, a necessity. The natatorium is different at 5:30 a.m., empty of voices, filled instead with the meditative echo of water drops from distant pipes. Shadows pool in corners where bright fluorescents don't reach. The water itself seems darker, more mysterious, a silent conspirator. Desiree moves silently through the staff entrance. The janitors know her grandfather. They've granted her this secret access for months without question. Brotherhood, Pops calls it. The invisible network of people who keep places like Westlake running while remaining unseen themselves. She changes quickly, sets her grandfather's digital watch on the starting block, and slides into the water without a ripple. For several minutes, she simply floats, letting the water accept her weight, become an extension of her body rather than an adversary. Then she begins. The techniques in her grandfather's notebook aren't merely about speed. They're about perfection of form, about understanding how water molecules interact with human anatomy. Her arms slice through the surface at precisely calculated angles. Her kick generates maximum propulsion with minimal resistance. Her turns are tight, explosive, precise to the millimeter. Lap after lap, she builds rhythm, each stroke flowing into the next. In the quiet pool, there is no team, no coach, no scholarship at stake, just Desiree and the water dancing their private dance. On her 12th lap, she registers movement at the pool's edge, a shadow where there shouldn't be one. She completes her turn, kicks off the wall, and sees him, Coach Phillips, standing slack-jawed at the pool's edge. Behind him, two men in expensive suits clutch coffee cups, equally stunned. Desiree falters for half a second, then forces herself to complete the lap with perfect form. When she touches the wall, she's breathing hard, but not from exertion. "What are you doing in here?" Phillips demands, but his voice lacks conviction. His eyes keep darting to the watch display, which shows a time that would have qualified for state championships. Swimming, Desiree answers simply, pulling herself from the pool. Coach Phillips steps closer, lowering his voice. These gentlemen are from the Riverdale Athletic Foundation, potential donors. His eyes narrow. What you just did, that wasn't the technique of someone who's been cut for form issues. No, Desiree agrees. It wasn't. The coach's expression shifts, calculation replacing shock. Listen, perhaps I was hasty in my assessment. Why don't we discuss your reinstatement? The team could use your talent after all. One of the suited men steps forward, extends a business card. That was extremely impressive, young lady. Coach Phillips didn't mention your name when discussing the team's top prospects. Because she's not currently on the team, Phillips interjects quickly. A temporary situation we're resolving. He turns to Desiree, voice dropping to a whisper. We can work this out. You get back on the team, these gentlemen make their donation. Everyone wins. All you need to do is understand how things work here. Some parents are very invested in their children's positions. The implication is clear. Return, but know your place. Win, but not too much. Exist, but don't shine. Desiree looks at the coach, then at the expensive watch her grandfather entrusted to her. She thinks of the Instagram posts, the cutout photos, the falsified times, the sacrifices her grandfather made so she could attend this school. I understand exactly how things work here, Coach, she says, her voice steady. And I'll be at the Riverdale Invitational next month, as an independent qualifier. Phillips's face darkens. Don't be stupid, you need a team behind you. No, Desiree corrects him, gathering her things. I need a fair race, just once. As she walks away, she hears one of the donors asking pointed questions about team selection criteria and scholarship allotments. Small ripples, growing larger. The community pool at Dawn Heights Recreation Center has always been Desiree's second home. Unlike Westlake's gleaming facility, it shows its age. Chipped tiles rough against her fingertips during turns, faded lane markers, the peculiar echo that only comes from high ceilings with poor acoustics. But it's here, with her grandfather watching from a plastic chair, that Desiree truly swims. Again, Elton says, clicking his stopwatch. Your third turn was a millisecond slow. Desiree pushes off the wall, body cutting through water that feels increasingly like an ally rather than an opponent. Her grandfather's notebook sits open beside him, pages fluttering slightly in the air current from ancient ceiling fans. Better, he calls as she completes the set. Now we're talking. Taylor sits nearby, camera in hand, documenting each session. The school newspaper was initially her excuse, but Desiree suspects she's genuinely invested now. You know this could be huge, right? Taylor asks during a break. Not just the race, the whole story. Rich coach taking bribes to keep privileged kids on the team while cutting the best swimmer? That's headline material beyond just our school paper. Desiree towels off, uncomfortable with the idea of publicity. I just want to swim and keep my scholarship. And expose corruption, Taylor adds with a grin. 3 days later, a sign greets them at the recreation center entrance. Pool closed for emergency repairs. Through the glass doors, Desiree can see empty water, exposed concrete, maintenance workers in coveralls. 2 weeks minimum, the attendant tells them apologetically. Crack in the foundation. Safety issue. 2 weeks, with the Riverdale Invitational just 18 days away. The YMCA has a pool, Taylor suggests. It does, where half the Westlake swim team practices on weekends. Desiree discovers this the hard way when she arrives the following afternoon to find Heather and Blake doing laps, their parents watching from poolside chairs. The conversation stops when she enters. Mrs. Griffin whispers something to her husband, who immediately approaches the facility manager. 20 minutes later, the manager regretfully informs Desiree that the pool is now reserved for members only during afternoon hours. We could try the community college, her grandfather suggests on the bus ride home, his breathing more labored than usual. The medication rationing is taking its toll. Their team has priority, Desiree responds, scrolling through her phone. Everywhere decent is either booked solid or suddenly members only as soon as I show up. Taylor sends a text that evening. Bad news. Someone filed a complaint with the Riverdale Invitational Committee about your eligibility. On what grounds? Desiree demands when they meet at school the next day. Taylor shows her the photos. Coach Phillips having coffee with one of the invitational officials, same day as the complaint filing. Technically, since you were on the Westlake team initially, they're claiming you need a formal release from your coach to compete independently. It's an obscure rule, but it exists, Desiree finishes, the familiar taste of defeat threatening to rise. Dr. Winters finds her after physics class, takes one look at her face and says, "My office. Now." Inside the cramped space filled with books and scientific models, the teacher studies her. Taylor Kim tells me you need a pool. Desiree looks up, surprised. You talk to Taylor? I advise the newspaper, Dr. Winters says simply. And I have a backyard pool, nothing fancy but regulation length. Different chemicals than you're used to, less chlorine, more salt. But the physics is the same. Hope flickers, quickly tempered by suspicion. Why would you help me, Doctor? Winters opens a drawer, removes a faded photograph, a younger version of herself on a swimming podium, circa 1990s. Because 30 years ago, I was you. Different prejudice, same story. She taps the silver medal around her neck in the photo. Should have been gold. That evening, Desiree calls home from Dr. Winters' backyard, watching the sunset reflect orange across the surprisingly professional-grade pool. Pops, I found a place to... She stops, hearing her grandfather's ragged coughing. Pops, you okay? The coughing subsides. Fine, Butterfly, just the usual. But it's not just the usual. When Desiree returns home, she finds him asleep in his chair, breathing shallow, a missed call notification from his doctor on his phone. The insurance denial letter sits on the table, now accompanied by a past due notice for their rent. For the first time, doubt creeps in. What is she doing? Training for a swim meet while her grandfather needs help? She should be looking for a part-time job, not chasing some redemption fantasy. She's halfway through a job application on her phone when Elton wakes up. What's that? He asks, voice rough from sleep. Job listing. Quick Stop is hiring cashiers. Her grandfather's eyes narrow. And the invitational? Can wait. We need money now, not maybe in a month. Elton sits up straighter, reaches for his notebook. No. Pops? No, he repeats more forcefully. I gave up my chance once. Told myself there would be other races, other times. There weren't. He opens the notebook to its final pages, sections Desiree has never seen before. These are the last techniques I developed. Never had a chance to use them. Never taught them to you because I was saving them. Saving them for what? His eyes meet hers, fierce despite his weakened state. For when you needed to be undeniable. The Riverdale Aquatic Center gleams like a cathedral of water and light. Glass walls soar upward, morning sun streaming through to dance across the Olympic-sized pool where state champions have been crowned for decades. The sound hits Desiree first. Hundreds of voices echoing off water and tile, creating a roaring sea of noise, unlike the quiet pools where she's trained. Elton moves slowly beside her, leaning more heavily on his cane than usual. The morning's breathing treatment has left him tired but determined. He carries his notebook tucked securely under one arm. Registration desk is over there, he says, nodding toward a table where officials in navy blazers process paperwork. Desiree approaches with Taylor beside her, camera already documenting everything. The official's smile fades slightly as he reviews her forms. Independent qualifier? From Westlake? His eyebrows rise. There seems to be an issue with your paperwork. We need a coach's signature for the waiver. I'm not with the team anymore, Desiree explains. I'm competing independently. The official shakes his head. Without a team affiliation, you need additional authorization. I'm afraid without Coach Phillips' signature, is there a problem here? Dr. Winters appears beside them, radiating professional authority in a blazer and credentials from her time as a state physics education liaison. This swimmer lacks proper authorization, the official begins. Dr. Winters produces a business card. Perhaps you should call Carlton Michaels on the school board. He and I were just discussing Westlake's independent qualification protocols yesterday. Fascinating conversation about Title IX compliance. The official's expression shifts. He makes a phone call, speaking in hushed tones while glancing repeatedly at Desiree. When he returns, his smile is back, strained but present. Everything appears to be in order after all. Lane assignment will be posted before preliminaries. As they walk away, Desiree whispers, "Who's Carlton Michaels?" "School board president, Dr. Winters answers. "And an old friend who doesn't appreciate athletic departments operating like private clubs." Across the pool deck, Desiree spots the Westlake team arriving in matching warm-ups. Coach Phillips freezes momentarily upon seeing her, then quickly gathers his swimmers, speaking intensely. Heather and Blake keep looking over, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and contempt. Taylor has set up multiple recording points around the pool, her press credentials allowing her access other spectators don't have. "Live streaming to the school's social media," she explains. "Half the student body is watching already." The preliminaries pass in a blur of noise and movement. Desiree places second in her heat, deliberately holding back just enough to qualify without revealing her full capability. Coach Phillips watches with narrowed eyes from the sidelines, stopwatch in hand, recalculating with each lap. Between heats, Desiree notices her grandfather looking pale, sitting heavily on a bench. She rushes over, heartbeat accelerating with fear rather than exertion. "Pops? Should we go? We can leave right now if—" "Don't you dare," he rasps, gripping her hand. His eyes are fierce despite his labored breathing. "This is your moment. Been waiting for it since you were 7 years old." He removes his watch, presses it into her palm. "Final turn," he whispers. "Remember page 47, the momentum shift at exactly 3/4. Nobody teaches that technique anymore because nobody understands the physics of it." The finalists are called to their positions. 8 lanes, 8 swimmers, 7 from established teams with professional coaches. And Desiree, lane 5, independent, grandfather's watch secure on her wrist. As she adjusts her cap and goggles, she sees Heather in lane 4, whispering something to Blake in lane 3. They both laugh, looking pointedly at Desiree. Coach Phillips stands behind them, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "Swimmers, take your marks." Desiree closes her eyes briefly, feels the cool starting block beneath her toes, visualizes water molecules, their interaction with her body, the perfect angles her grandfather calculated decades ago while the swimming world ignored him. The buzzer sounds. 8 bodies hit the water simultaneously. The roar of the crowd fades into a muffled underwater hum as Desiree finds her rhythm immediately. The first 50 meters pass in perfect form, arms slicing, legs propelling, body riding the fine line between surface and depth that minimizes resistance. At the turn, she's even with Heather, a hair behind Blake. She can see Coach Phillips from the corner of her eye, his face tightening as he realizes she's keeping pace. Second 50. Desiree applies Dr. Winters' physics lessons, adjusting her arm entry to account for the pool's unique current patterns. She pulls ahead by a quarter length, feeling the water resist, then yield as theory becomes practical advantage. Third 50. Blake kicks harder, closing the gap, his technique forceful but wasteful. Heather matches him, drawing even with Desiree again. The taste of adrenaline fills Desiree's mouth, metallic and electric, as she maintains perfect form despite the burning in her muscles. Final turn approaching. This is where champions are made, where her grandfather's forbidden technique will either prove revolutionary or fail completely. 3/4 to the wall, Desiree initiates the sequence. A subtle shift in body position, almost imperceptible, right shoulder dropping precisely 2 centimeters lower than conventional technique dictates. As she flips, her momentum transfers differently, the physics creating a slingshot effect that conventional swimming wisdom says is impossible. She feels it instantly, the water becoming not an obstacle but a launching mechanism. Her body rockets from the wall with velocity that surprises even her, propelling her a full body length ahead before the others have completed their turns. The final 25 meters unfold in slow motion. Desiree feels every water molecule, every subtle current. The resistance against her palms, the lift along her torso, the precision of each kick, all calibrated to maintain the advantage her turn created. Coach Phillips's face as she passes is a portrait of disbelief. Heather and Blake thrash desperately behind her, their perfect technique dissolving into panicked effort. Desiree's hand hits the wall. The pool erupts into chaos. The scoreboard flashes her time, a full second faster than the Westlake record that has stood untouched for 15 years. Officials huddle, checking and rechecking the electronic timing system, unable to believe what they've just witnessed. Stunned silence gives way to thunderous applause as spectators, many from Westlake who came to support their team, find themselves cheering for the independent swimmer who just rewrote their understanding of what was possible. The applause vibrates through the water, through the pool deck, through Desiree's body as she hangs on the edge of the lane, breathing hard, the reality of what just happened washing over her in waves. The scoreboard displays her time in glowing digital numbers, officials still gathered beneath it in disbelief, verifying what electronic sensors and human eyes have already confirmed. A new record, irrefutable and undeniable. Taylor's cameras capture everything. The stunned expressions of the Westlake team, Coach Phillips's ashen face, the scoreboard with Desiree's name at the top, and most importantly, Elton Taylor rising shakily to his feet, tears streaming unashamedly down his weathered face. "That's my granddaughter," he tells anyone within earshot, voice breaking with pride. "That's my butterfly." A local news crew, alerted by Taylor's live stream that has already garnered thousands of views, pushes through the crowd. Microphones appear in Desiree's face as she climbs from the pool, water cascading from her shoulders. "How does it feel to break the record? Were you surprised by your performance today? Why aren't you swimming for Westlake's team?" Before Desiree can answer, a woman in an expensive suit approaches. Dr. Nelson, head of the Westlake School Board, her expression a mixture of confusion and growing concern. She's followed by Carlton Michaels, the board president Dr. Winters mentioned earlier. "Ms. Taylor," Dr. Nelson begins formally, "I was under the impression you were cut from the Westlake swim team for technical deficiencies." The question hangs in the air, cameras still rolling, capturing every word. From the corner of her eye, Desiree sees Coach Phillips attempting to slip away. Taylor adjusts her camera angle to ensure he remains in frame. "Yes, ma'am," Desiree answers, standing tall despite the water still dripping from her body. "Coach Phillips determined my technique wasn't precise enough for Westlake standards. Doctor." Nelson's eyes flick to the scoreboard, then back to Desiree. "And yet you just broke our school record by a full second." "Yes, ma'am." "As an independent swimmer." "Yes, ma'am." Michaels steps forward, his voice carrying across the now hushed pool deck. "Perhaps Coach Phillips could explain the discrepancy between his assessment and today's results." Phillips freezes mid-escape, forced to turn back. The cameras swivel to capture him, trapped in the spotlight of public scrutiny. "Athletic decisions are made based on multiple factors," he begins stiffly. "Team cohesion, long-term potential, and donations," Taylor interjects, her voice innocent but her eyes sharp. She holds up her phone, displaying screenshots of the Instagram group with Phillips's username clearly visible on the offensive posts. "Or perhaps social preferences?" A murmur runs through the crowd. One of the Riverdale officials steps forward, a medallion gleaming on his chest. "The winner of the Riverdale Invitational receives a $5,000 scholarship. Ms. Taylor, if you'd join us for the presentation." The ceremony passes in a blur. The weight of the medal around her neck, the oversized check, the continued flashes of cameras. Through it all, Desiree keeps her eyes on her grandfather, who stands taller now despite his physical frailty, notebook clutched proudly against his chest. When finally given the microphone, Desiree speaks clearly, her voice carrying across the natatorium. This victory isn't just mine. It belongs to my grandfather, Elton Taylor, whose understanding of swimming technique was decades ahead of its time. She pauses, gathering strength for what comes next. And it belongs to everyone who's ever been told they don't belong, that their presence makes others uncomfortable, that their talent somehow counts less because of who they are or where they come from. The crowd has grown completely silent, hanging on her words. Swimming isn't about donations or country club memberships or making sure the right people win. It's about discipline, dedication, and the perfect relationship between a human body and water. That's what my grandfather taught me. That's what can't be bought or sold or reserved for some and denied to others. 1 week later, the Westlake Academy boardroom buzzes with tension. An official investigation has been launched into the swim team's selection practices and the alleged donations influencing athletic decisions. Coach Phillips has been suspended pending review, his office being combed through by auditors discovering years of financial irregularities. Dr. Nelson sits across from Desiree and her grandfather, her expression solemn. The board would like to offer you the position of team captain for next season, with a full athletic scholarship to complement your academic one. Desiree considers the offer, feeling the weight of her grandfather's watch on her wrist. I appreciate that, Dr. Nelson, but I think Westlake needs something more important than a new captain. What's that? A new system. One where talent and hard work matter more than connections or contributions. Desiree leans forward. Instead of making me captain, establish a diversity scholarship for swimming, and implement blind tryouts, where coaches evaluate technique without knowing which swimmer they're watching. Dr. Nelson's eyebrows rise. That's an unusual request. So was asking the only black swimmer with qualifying times to leave the team, Elton says quietly. Sometimes unusual requests reveal character. 3 months later, dawn breaks over the Dawn Heights Recreation Center. The pool gleams with new tiles, fresh paint, updated equipment, renovations funded by a coalition of Westlake parents shocked into action by the exposure of Phillips's system. The morning light illuminates a dozen young swimmers from diverse backgrounds, all focused intently on the woman demonstrating in the water. The relationship between your body and the water isn't adversarial, Desiree explains, moving with the fluid grace that broke records. It's collaborative. Understanding the physics changes everything. On the pool deck, Elton sits with his notebook open, occasionally calling out adjustments. His breathing is easier now, the full course of medication made possible by the scholarship funds. Beside him, Taylor documents the session, her expose on athletic inequality having won state journalism awards and sparked investigations at 3 other schools. Dr. Winters arrives with equipment for the afternoon physics demonstration, nodding approvingly at the scene. The Westlake blind tryouts are next week, she reminds Desiree. Half the board will be observing. They'll see something they've never seen before, Desiree responds, helping a young girl adjust her arm position. The child's face, brown like Desiree's, lights up when the adjustment results in noticeably less resistance. Blake Peterson appears at the entrance to the recreation center, hesitating before stepping inside. He's without his usual entourage, dressed in street clothes rather than Westlake colors. Desiree notices him first, her body tensing instinctively. "What do you want?" Taylor asks, stepping protectively between him and the pool. Blake raises his hands slightly. "Just to talk. 5 minutes." Desiree signals to her grandfather, who nods but watches carefully as she approaches the edge of the pool. Blake shifts uncomfortably, looking at the children practicing their strokes rather than at her. "My dad resigned from the board," he says finally, after the audit found his signature on some of Phillips's financial approvals. Desiree says nothing, waiting. He didn't know about the Instagram group, Blake continues, or about Phillips changing times. He just wanted me to have advantages. He looks up finally, meeting her eyes. I knew, though, about all of it. The admission hangs between them, unexpected and raw. Why are you here, Blake? Desiree asks, her voice neutral. He gestures toward the pool. I heard about what you're doing, teaching kids who can't afford private coaches. A pause. I've been accepted to state on a partial swimming scholarship. I still need to work on my form if I want to keep it. Understanding dawns. You want me to train you? I know how it sounds, he says quickly. After everything, but yes, what you did at Riverdale, that turn technique, nobody's seen anything like it. Desiree studies him, remembering his whispered finally when Coach Phillips cut her, the snickering in physics class, the way he never stood up against any of it. Come back Saturday, she says finally. 6 a.m. If you're serious, you'll be on time. Thank you, he says, relief evident. I'll pay whatever your rate is. You don't pay with money, Elton interrupts, having moved closer during their conversation. You pay by coaching 2 of our beginning students for every hour Desiree works with you. Blake looks around at the diverse group of children, some as young as 7, all from neighborhoods like Desiree's rather than his gated community. I've never coached kids before. Then you'll learn, Elton says simply. That's how it works here. Nobody just takes. Everybody gives back. After Blake leaves, Taylor approaches, her expression skeptical. You're really going to train him? After everything? Desiree watches the children practicing, their movements already showing the influence of her grandfather's techniques. Change has to start somewhere. Might as well be in the water. The following Tuesday, Desiree stands at the edge of the newly renovated Westlake pool. The blind tryout system is in place, swimmers in identical black suits, hair covered, performing for a panel of judges who can see only technique, not identity. Dr. Nelson and the board sit above in the observation deck, clipboards in hand. Dr. Winters stands beside Desiree, their reflections wavering in the water's surface. You ready for this? I've been ready my whole life, Desiree answers. The first prospective team member steps onto the starting block, a girl whose dark skin gleams under the fluorescent lights. Another follows, then another. Desiree recognizes them from her community classes, kids who never would have dared try out under the old system. Behind the observation glass, Dr. Nelson leans forward, watching not the swimmers but Desiree herself, the young woman whose refusal to stay invisible forced an entire institution to confront its failings. Later that evening, Desiree sits with her grandfather on their small balcony. The financial pressure has eased. The scholarship money, combined with Desiree's new position as assistant coach at Westlake and paid consultant to 3 other school districts implementing similar blind tryout systems, has brought stability they haven't known in years. Did I ever tell you why I started swimming? Elton asks, his voice stronger these days, the medication working as it should. Because you were fast, Desiree answers, the familiar story a comfort. No, he smiles. Because water doesn't care who you are. It responds to physics, to understanding, to respect. It's the most honest element there is. Desiree touches her grandfather's watch, still worn daily despite offers from equipment companies to endorse their latest models. The perfect stroke isn't really about swimming, is it? Never was, he agrees. It's about moving through a world that pushes against you, understanding the forces at work, and using that knowledge to propel yourself forward instead of letting it hold you back. The following morning, before the sun has fully risen, Desiree stands at the edge of the Dawn Heights pool. New students wait nervously alongside veterans of her program. Blake arrives precisely at 6, already changed and ready to work with his assigned beginners. Desiree slides into the water, feeling it welcome her as it always has, the one place where she has never had to be less than she is, never had to hide her power or potential. The water doesn't lie, she tells her students, echoing her grandfather's words. It doesn't care about your background or what anyone thinks you're capable of. It responds to technique, to understanding, to respect. She demonstrates the entry, her body slicing through the surface with a precision that still draws gasps from observers. As she completes the lap and turns to her students, she sees Taylor filming from the side, documenting this moment as she has all the others. Some walls aren't meant to be accepted, Desiree tells her students, watching understanding dawn in their eyes. They're meant to be broken, not just by me, by all of us. On her wrist, her grandfather's watch continues keeping perfect time, measuring not just seconds and minutes, but the steady rhythm of change that starts with a single perfect stroke. Did this story of triumph against injustice move you? Want to experience more powerful underdog victories that will leave you feeling inspired and uplifted? Subscribe to Beat Stories now. Our channel delivers the most emotionally satisfying stories of ordinary people achieving extraordinary victories against all odds. From academic underdogs to athletic comebacks, from workplace justice to creative breakthroughs, we showcase real people overcoming real challenges. Hit that like button if you enjoyed Desiree's journey. Share with friends who need to witness the power of perseverance. Comment below with your favorite moment from the story. And most importantly, subscribe to Beat Stories for your weekly dose of motivation, inspiration, and cathartic justice. New stories drop every Wednesday and Sunday. Turn on notifications so you never miss the moment when the underdog finally gets their day.
Every time someone stands up, speaks out, or refuses to be erased, a new story is born. At Beat Stories, we archive that courage. Subscribe now and help us keep these moments alive, because the more we share them, the harder they are to ignore.